My greetings. You're watching another discussion in the series of meetings called The Future Talks. My guest is Piotr Nemoy, theater director, researcher of new anthropology, and analyst. Analyst is something I think is. So this is going to be in a slightly different format. I think different, I mean, usually I ask the questions, but today we're going to do it bilaterally. You are going to be asking the questions as well. I'm sure you have many questions already. Let's see how it fits into the air of today's discussion. So it's been quite a long time you're in Yerevan, at least 3 months? 3 months. Okay, so I'm sure that you have some general understanding about the myths that we encounter here. Well, doubtlessly I do. Well, generally the space of Yerevan, of Armenia, of the Armenian world is essentially nourished on myths, and that mythology is the non-vendible part of culture. Myths about Armenians being ancient, myths about Yerevan that existed at a time, myths about family traditions, myths about... Now, I'm sorry, I have to intervene. When you say myths, you do not connect it to how real they are. You mean the construct that is put into our heads. Well, I think that those that exist in our heads are the myths themselves. That's mythology, because everything that we see materialized in the physical world, I mean, buildings, edifices, towns, and some businesses, etc. All of that is a result of mythology, anthropology as well, those categories that are in the heads of the people. In that respect, for me, the fundamental science per se is important, meaning history and anthropology and the folklore in the heads of the people, the vernacular part. Okay, so Armenians, being an ancient nation, Yerevan is the beloved city of ours where everyone loved to visit friends, so kind of community existence of those in Yerevan and Armenians in the world. What else? Well, this very significant and interesting myth, number one, I would say. And I later understood that anywhere in the world, Armenians were the first, in any sector. I mean, speak whatever you want about. I mean, this way or another, some Armenians are first. If it's not the case, then simply you haven't digged in the archives properly. So the mustache, I'm sure Armenians started growing mustache, the first in the world. So that's the myth on one side. That's the mythological way of thinking that Armenians are the first in every sector. It creates the competitiveness intrinsically when Armenians want to be number ones in every sector in the world. And there are also some cognitive myths as well. So I guess that one of the most modern myths is that a person who is on a white Niva with nice license plates should consider himself Armenian, having passions. I mean, if you don't, then essentially you haven't succeeded in your life. If you haven't got those, well, then we are not successful Armenians, in fact. Okay, next. So, this country, to speak of mythology per se, then it's a very important part of any culture. It contains functions that allow establishing ways of life on one side. On the other side, it contains protective functions, the slang, the function of a super language, and everything that allows establish community and communication, which are also very important. So at a certain moment, you may consider the society well established. When you walk in the street and you meet someone who tells you, you know, this is not how you do it here. It means there are certain rules, some not written rules of communication. And sometimes the mythology is based on those rules as well, like this beautiful word in Armenian, which means a madman, crazy. So there are so many madmen around on one side, and that word, which means crazy, which means mad, somehow kind of fences that person off the society. But on the other side, frees that person from any social responsibility, and that person, calling himself crazy or mad, can start thinking openly, freely, and there are so many such crazy people around. Or the same might not be around thinking, but work with certain environments, certain groups of people. For example, in Yerevan, in Armenia as such, there are many defenders of culture, of traditions, of archives. These are not public entities, these are not institutions, these are not museums, but these are those madmen. Because the madmen are the ones who are the devoted ones, the ones that are the researchers. And that's also part of the mythology, these madmen. Because when you speak of people who have done certain things that might fall out of the normal, of the regular, of the rational, then we call them mad. And we're also attracted to them. To me, the existence of these city madmen is essentially something that helps the development of the city. Because why city? Because they live in the city. Okay, what's about the rural ones? Okay, then in the villages they have their own. Well, in terms of playwrights, then the integrity of culture emerges from the negative and positive characters of the narrative, because ultimately all of them are part of the system. Only then you can say that the ecosystem was established. Because one of the functions of those madmen, as well as the functions of those street artists, is emit the vapor, say things the others do not have the heart to say. And if it does not exist in the regular life, then these madmen start to penetrate it. Okay, so you're now implementing a project called 301, the country of the wise, or the wise man. Well, I don't know whether I implement it or the project implements me. Well, yes, I see. But the name is clear. What's the core? What's the essence? Like 301 or 301. Well, we can connect that to the date of adoption of Christianity in Armenia, right? That's what Christianity was called the official religion. By the way, that's not the correct date. It happened a little earlier. You know what the issue is? And this is a question to you, Mark John. Why 301? And I've been asking that question to everyone because the name 301 or 301 did not emerge in some logical process of making conclusions. Well, is it connected to Christianity? Yes, it is also to Christianity. Is it connected to Hike and those who followed him? Yes, it is. Is it connected to the article by Kocharian? Maybe it is. Okay, it's not the article of the criminal code, is it? There may be one, I'm sure. In fact, mathematics-wise, in terms of general perception of these figures, 301 and 301, etc., a lot is hidden there that number emerged on its own as a name of the project. And everyone said yes. A large number of people said they were against naming the project that way because it looks back, not forward. It looks in the past, and it immediately associates with the Christianity and etc. But provided something in our hearts insisted, we decided to keep that name of the project, and it could be unbundled on the way down the road. So every person I meet asks what 301 is. I may add a little to your interpretation in an attempt. In the Criminal Code of Turkey, 301 is the insult of the Turkishness. And I can tell you that there is not a single Armenian author in Turkey who would not be persecuted under that article, including Hrant Dink. Another interpretation of 301, by the way. Yes. And to make use of this opportunity, provided we are now present in many spaces right now, I will also ask the viewers, the audience, to write all possible interpretations and aberrations of 301. It would truly be very valuable for us. Great. Let's go back to the headwaters. What kind of a project that is? Tell us, please. I'll try answering that in a way I haven't ever answered, because, of course, many interviewers have asked that question. But apparently the essence is the following. 301 is a fund and a project connected with one of the hypotheses that we inferred on our own in consequence of a number of interviews and researches regarding the following. We would like to, and we think that it's very important, to bring 300 wise men to Armenia in the upcoming 7 years. People of various backgrounds. I don't know, could be some gurus in IT or translators of some historical texts, or some decadent sculptors or architects. The sector does not matter, because Armenia is multifaceted and may absorb any of such advancements. Nevertheless, there are two questions here. First, how do you define a wise man? What kind of wise men are we talking about? Why don't we speak about 300 experts, 300 scientists? We say the wise man. That's how we defined it. I think, as Brodsky wrote in one of his marvelous poems, the things are larger than the values given to them. So it's a painful attitude per se, because the world caught in the press of economic logic destroys everything, destroys all the values that might seem irrational to it, despite the fact that everything rational is the child of irrational, respectively. If you move from economy to church and say that the church should be effective, then the church could be that actor. Let's try calculating the economic effectiveness of our parents. There is a whole row of different sectors which are the conducive environments. We don't eat the earth, but we eat the fruits that grow on it. We know that a cafe next to a fountain is more profitable than the one not next to a fountain. So how much should we invest? Well, and what is a fountain? Can we just have a pipe with water, or we need to invite an architect to build something more sophisticated? So these economic concepts ultimately bring to the point where being obsessed with the material, we lose the spiritual, the imaginary nourishing of our existence. And that negativism of ours, we deny those who have lived their lives of scientists or experts, but now they have moved to this superpositions where they are not anyhow related with the material realization, but master the pure wisdom and may dissuade some processes, some people towards some processes. So why do we want to end up there? Apart from just trying to bring more Armenians to the country, these 300 wise men should not be Armenians. Why? And this is very important. Because now we think that there are hundreds of wise men in Armenia, and I know many of them personally. Unfortunately, there are two very significant points. One is no one needs them. When we meet these wise people, just amazing people, amazing knowledge. Like you open a well, no one has made use of for 1,000 years, and it's just ready to give everything inside because no one touched it. But there is the second point to it. It is when the smart person able to do things for the world is not able to do anything for himself. So the task for the 300 wise men is the following. They should try to reflect the values that Armenians have, because the Armenian people is simply not able to see it. Okay. So if we compare your project to the project that was implemented in the 20s of the 20th century, 100 years ago, the difference is that they invited Armenians at the time, but you are not going to invite Armenians this time. Yes, we can look at it from a different angle. We are going to invite non-Armenians not to read lectures and live in Armenia, but to move to this country. They are going to move to this land and become part of the Armenian world. That's first. Second is the following. Indeed, there is such difference. And there is this important concept, important for me. I'd like to describe it. Now let me try describing it. One of the incredible artifacts that reflects deeply the nature of the Armenians themselves is Matenadaran. Every nation builds some artifacts, creates some artifacts that would further prove the belonging to that nation. So this artifact says very important words about what Armenians are. Who are they? Because it's a collection, it's a folklore, it's a study of other cultures, it's a preservation of traditions, which means it is in the nature of Armenians. In fact, all the manuscripts there, they are not the primary sources, but they are the copies. But they're also primary, yes. They're also first hands, yes. But importantly, a lot has been translated, yes. Because when the source is lost, the Armenian translation becomes the source itself. So, this is a thesis that we are basing ourselves upon, and it is the following. Can Armenia become Matenadaran itself? A country that invites the cultures of the world and preserves them. Is the Red Book of Philosophy, is the Red Book of Statehood of nations. That's a different concept, a different part of the hypothesis. So indeed, it's different on one side, but yet it is like the continuation of Matenadaran in the anthropological way, in the heads of those wise people. Okay, you see, the historical experience, I mean, the history proves, and now I'm the devil's advocate. We Armenians have been striving for becoming mono-ethnical through the history, and with the highest probability, that is because of the consequences of the genocide. We want to unify. We want to come together in a place where we are the only ones, because by being together, we can defend ourselves. It's a big issue, a very big issue. Very well. First of all, will that help? Will that help in creating a structure in which genocides will not happen again? Secondly, we had an interesting dialogue with one of the psychologists, and let me tell you another very important thing on this matter. That psychologist, during the war, she worked with soldiers, and in parallel, she also researched the environment. She didn't finish her research because it was not her main job. She said one very interesting thing I remember. She said, it seems Armenians are in a vicious cycle, and in that cycle, they always expect a genocide. So at the moment of aggression, they come together. Somehow it happens. They come together to withstand. But at the moment it ends, the threat is gone, they depart with different goals. But when, at the moment the genocide is over, they start expecting the next one. They're sure it will happen, and they need to be financially sustainable by the time the next genocide happens, so that they're able to run away and take their families with them. And at that moment, they're not just departed, divided, but they can even throw one another away to get to their individual targets. Now, I naturally had a question there, a very difficult question, a very difficult character in my head, but I cannot keep myself from not telling it to you. So this expectation of genocide in terms of mysteries, isn't that the calling for genocide? Isn't that somehow contributing to? Because that's the role of a victim when you provoke that environment around yourself. Why? There are so few Armenians that can come together in establishing the strategies for the future. Why? Now, this is my question. Once again, that character, that concept, I've conversed that long ago, and yesterday touched upon in a different conversation. So this is it. There is this term I have invented, is the consequences of the future. The flower that sprouts through the pavement, not because it has the experience under it, but because it knows what it's going to look like in the future. And that knowledge is so strong that helps that flower becomes what it becomes. And that is the experience. Okay, where is that experience accumulated? In which sector? In the psychic of today? Or maybe genetically inherited? At what depth is that energy sitting? That's not a repulsive piece of energy. It is the attractive one, because the one of the future attracts 100 times stronger than the energy of the past, which is more repulsive. I understand. I think this is a time to ask you the following question that has arrived from the internet. What must we change, in your opinion, in the Armenian society? Okay, let me try. I think we should change two things. not even change them, but maybe adjust. The first is, well, I would like to ask different Armenians what they understand when they say they are Armenians. What is being Armenian? What group of values, mythological concepts, perceptions, what is Armenians? Because to me, a person who is an observer, a person engaged in love, I can see a lot of unique properties no one even makes use of. And those properties Armenian world uses are obviously not effective. They do not augment the system. They are not effective in establishing communicative platforms and providing the effectiveness thereof. So it means, just in terms of bionics, in terms of a system, they are imported. They are alien. They are parts of strange anthologies Armenians have tried to reproduce, but they cannot fully copy them so that they bear the same function like the British, for example. I mean, it's a huge number of different systems, but they cannot get rid of them either because it's obscure and you don't understand what you should be getting rid of. For example, exceptionally in the sense of a system, not politics. There is this democratic institute, for example, and then you select or elect someone as the teacher of the year. Now, the process of planning a proper economic or environmental system is 20 years. The long-lasting one is 50 years. These are properties of a bionic system of life and system of breathing. So there is a functional public official who needs half a year to get into and understand what happens, another half a year to pack the things and leave, not falling into the abyss at once. So that's the relevant time. So what should he be talking about with a 50-year-old person? These are different parts. These are different worlds, like Ray Bradbury described them. So this is an inconsistency of the level of civilization, internal harmony, and 60,000 years old breathing, and the planning of the processes, and community and culture, left in an environment of superficial, extremely quick changes, creating degradation right away. Well, you see, I'm trying to understand. There can be a leader for 25 years. It means I will not see a new leader in my life. Well, yes, but you get married for a whole life, and it's fine. I'm not going to get married with him. Well, why not? Well, you do not get married for the whole life either. You can divorce, and the leader may leave unexpectedly. Yes, but I also mean that if I perceive myself on this planet, I understand my children, I understand my grandchildren on this earth. So just in terms of mathematics, the probability that this person, being bad, changes his mindset and becomes more effective for this planet, then essentially the same as in playing poker, not poker, but the blackjack. You overdo it. So, I mean, these are all parts. And I think, and this is yet an intuitive concept, that the genetics of Armenians, as a networking nation, is maximally close to becoming the first digital nation on this planet, where the position of a leader as a human is lifted completely. Tell me, please, aren't we demonstrating some conservatism, or maybe we're lagging behind in understanding, in modern understanding, when we say 300 wise men have to come to Armenia? Okay, we are a network. There is globalization of a number of sectors of our life taking place, and you can be quite enrolled in events taking place in Armenia while sitting in New York. And the same, you can sit in Yerevan and get involved in actions done in New York or in other parts of the world. Okay, you're saying, why do we need the physical presence of these people? Just for having them around? Maybe they are more effective somewhere in Geneva. Yes, but when we conversed the educational platform we're working on at this moment, we had meetings in a number of private schools in Armenia. I asked only one question: what is Armenian about your school? And they said nothing. So what am I talking about? I am not talking about that, the fact that Armenians talk Armenian and dance Armenian dances and read Armenian texts. That's degradation. I mean that since kindergarten, the whole education is based on the ancient principles and Armenian ontology of thinking, so that we produce cosmopolitan Armenians who are able to find themselves in any environment, but the basics belong to this earth, to these traditions, to this soil. And only then Armenians will be able to enrich the world and enrich the tradition. If they don't have the roots, then it doesn't matter. And in this respect, doubtlessly, the question is not that all Armenians come to Armenia and take the machine guns and say, leave everyone, this is Armenia. But what is Armenia? Because we did not define who Armenians are. Moreover, we need to understand that. We need to understand what is Armenia for Armenians. I see many Armenians for whom Armenia is just an old summer house where they can get sometimes a year and get some barbecues and leave. All right. Now, can Armenia become what Israel is for the Jewish world? What is the status of this soil? What is the status of the history of this soil? What do we defend? A city where my mother lived in 70s, or we defend the sacred land in terms of culture? In that case, how is that culture established? How is it maintained? How in my real life can I make use of that culture? Because as one nice person said, tradition is just transfer of the fire. You give the torch to carry it forward. You do not worship the fire. So when you speak where Armenians can be, and specifically what the digital world is, digital state, this is a state that does not say that we have some soil here. And you, all 10 million Armenians who do not live on this soil, have nothing to do with the Armenian state. Wait. When you need money here, they have something to do with Armenia. Because people who are in the diaspora are incredible scientists in respective sectors, experts, and leaders of the world-renowned companies. So the role of the diaspora is powerful. Moreover, the people in the diaspora are the real survivors of the real Armenian world, or non-Armenian world, to which Armenians have questions. For it to be relevant, you should establish a state in which the whole Armenian world is included. territorially and not territorially, depending on how effectively you solve the issue. I mean, because not the one who plants the potato lives here, but the one who knows how to do it. So you should never confuse this. And in that case, the position of Armenia is better defined. Clear? Well, you see, we've been conversing this point through the whole dialogue of ours, but there is a question. How do you feel yourself in Armenia? And what about the repatriation? I'm sorry, but these two questions are asked on the background of these approaches of that they have to leave the country. Well, I'm fully in love with this country. That's how I feel in it. And I have discussed that in other interviews. The thing is that I am a child of St. Petersburg underground and St. Petersburg in general. So Armenia and Yerevan are very precious to me, because as well as Siberia, for example, I mean, all these areas like St. Petersburg, Siberia, Armenia, these are lands where we have this concept of normal. Nothing ever turns into an ideology. Nothing ever turns into fascism. Well, I want to be in areas where I am not, I'm allowed to smoke. If I decided not to eat meat, then I can do that. But if I eat meat, then it's okay. So, I mean, these are places where just normal human relations are never turned into ideological approaches and fascism, ultimately. It's very difficult to maintain that environment, because in America, for example, when some of the scientists talk about their attitudes about some movements, etc., being innocent people in terms of anthropological dinosaurs, but the position of that person really produces a lot of very negative attitude. So the question is not what is good or what is bad. The question is how it is perceived in the environment in which people live. So that's about Armenia. Additionally, the structure, the construct are so deep you can really dive into. I feel myself happy, incredibly happy here. Now, as regards the repatriation and those who want to leave, I can tell you precisely what I feel. The world develops in pulse. I mean, it pulsates, and like a wave, upper point, lower point. I can clearly see the pulse of the future world in Armenia right now. Like the whole area, the whole region, Turkey, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Iran, it just pulses with an uncertain future. When you walk in Yerevan and you hear a discotheque where Armenians dance, and it is like just dashing and real, and just 10 meters away, you have some rallies in some tents, and then another 10 meters, and there's this guy who wants to propose to his girl, and then 10 meters away is a post-war rehabilitation center. So all of that exists in the same place simultaneously. So when you see that, you completely feel an explosion of passion. They are all mutually exclusive, but they can coexist, which means that it's just a pulse. You can feel that pulse right here. So those who draw the stable pictures of the world, of regularities, they will leave. But those who understand that they are right at the point of formation of future, they understand that this is the best place and they have to stay. Thank you very much. Well, I think you perfectly explained why you like Yerevan, and I think that we can end here. We can end by saying that indeed we are now at the pulse, and how the world is going to, what rate of pulse is the world going to have, depends on us. Yes, well, indeed, it depends on us. My guest was Piotr Nemoy. Goodbye.